Hello,
Hi,
how are you?
good. How are you?
Good, good. Sorry, I'm gonna turn on my video.
Perfect.
Hey, how's it going? I'm in my car right now, just taking a beat from driving.
I'm with Frank from We Are Kings,
That's right.
and this is the Hollywood Times.
It's good to meet you.
Good to meet you. This is Sully from the Hollywood Times. What inspired the central idea for this film?
Thanks for taking your time to do the interview. The inspiration for this film came from my personal upbringing in North Carolina. I grew up in a immigrant community with in a graduate housing. I grew up in this graduate housing community in North Carolina, and a lot of my peers were children of immigrants. When I was growing up in North Carolina, we had this like very special environment where kids were from all around the world, and we were in this America South experiencing all kinds of culture tension. There was a lot of subtle racism a lot of times, and also sometimes more in your face type of racism, but we always bonded together closely as a group of people. And I thought we just grew up in this really special environment in the South as a group of foreigners. And I felt like the story that we had was really special. And a lot of us immigrants, when we first moved down there, we were really trying to make a living for ourselves. This community was in between two warring gangs, and so there was like a lot of violence that was happening. My middle school principal was murdered in my neighborhood. There was just a lot of crazy stuff that was happening, and we were just trying to like keep peace and do our own thing. And under all of it, we were trying to make a little bit of side money to get us out of, hoping to get our parents out of poverty and our families in a better life. So, and amongst all of that backdrop, it was a lot of the kids just being kids and doing our own things and trying to survive in a way. And so the story was inspired by my adolescence growing up in that world.
Awesome, awesome. There is a great mix of humor and tension when the video starts playing in the middle of a half-empty restaurant. How did you approach the first scene when
The first scene, yeah.
that's funny? That was hilarious. I just started giggling.
No, I appreciate it. The first scene, I'm a huge fan of comedy. Really love comedy. I think comedy is a really great way to communicate culture. I think when certain things we can't understand across different cultures, a lot of times we can connect over humor. And while it's confusing how people react to certain things, for example, Len ducks under the table when his crush walks in, whereas someone else may approach them, but it's because Lin was trying to hide from his own culture. He was embarrassed by the restaurant that his mother worked in, but there's a lot of humor, I think, in that culture difference. That when you juxtapose these two things together, there's a lot of tension, and in my opinion, humor is just such a great way to play out that tension. And that particular scene was so true to me because I had classmates that were literally doing that in school, and I was just thinking like, how funny would it be if we set that in a restaurant where they're trying to do that and also hide both their culture and what they're trying to do that's borderline illegal at the same time. It probably is illegal to think about it, but I just thought it was funny to juxtapose all of these elements into this tense space of the Chinese restaurant, and I hope that humor plays across. Yeah.
Yeah, I did. It was really funny. And it was understandable what you tried to do with that. Awesome.
That's great.
How did the score come together?
The score.
And what kind of mood were you trying to set up?
Yeah. I was actually, so the film has a very like the film has a
Hip
very
hop.
dramatic turn, right, in the middle of the film, right? Because it in the beginning is this very humor situation, but then it turns into this almost like dangerous situation. And it was interesting because one of my friend, she's Asian American, she watched it. She's like, wow, that car ride is really dangerous. And I'm really happy that she picked up on that, because I think for Len, the character is this, yes, you want to be in this world, but a lot is at stake for him. And because you're in a car with a guy you don't know, and you're in a car with someone who you have a crush on. So that those things are very dangerous plays socially for him. So I wanted to make sure whatever tone we chose in the beginning was contrasted by the tone that came in later, which is why in the beginning it was this comedy with these two kids, and then it, with Len abandoning his friend, it shifted into this very foreign world. So we're contrasting these two worlds between the car and the Chinese restaurant, where the Chinese restaurant was home, and the car was more of like this space that he's still trying to understand. And so with the music, I chose a lot of like old Chinese pop songs to play on the radio of the restaurant. I wanted everything to be diegetic. I wanted everything to feel natural, except for the opening scene where we have this like hard-hitting hip-hop track, which it was a reflection of the time. That was from JB Benedict of Hyper Ballad Studio. He did a great job putting that together. And then that sort of extends the montage into the first scene. And then from that point forward, a lot of what we were looking at there was a very lighthearted and diegetic sounds that was happening in the restaurant. And then likewise in the second scene, we played something that's a little bit sinister. I was talking to the composer. I was like, I want to stay in like the 90s, early 2000 hip hop world, but I want the tone to feel a little bit more sinister. So we kept the hip hop vibe with like records and everything, but then I don't know, Amara Jaguar from Hyper Ballad did that particular scene, and she did some magic to make it feel a little bit off-putting. And so we had this contrast of tone from the restaurant to the car. And I thought that played out really well, setting the atmosphere.
There is a moment when just the mention of Lynn's mother seems to really shift his behavior. What roles do parents play in Chinese culture and
Yeah,
regular culture,
right.
whatever that is?
The mothers, what do they play in all cultures? Yeah, the mother is a central figure in
In every culture, they are.
in every culture, right? In this
Mexican
film,
culture too.
yeah, exactly. I feel like mother is like gravity. You don't always see gravity. It's always there. Like you
Yes.
might be doing everything, you're engaging with the rest of the world, you're doing your own thing, but there's always gravity. And I think your parents really are that in the person's life. And I think Len's actions, whether Len's embarrassed of his mother or missing his mother or trying to please his mother or feeling guilt, a lot of it comes from his relationship with his mother. And so what, as I'm understanding this as an adult, is a lot of times we don't really understand how our parents love us, how they show affection. And a lot of times their ways of showing love might be counterintuitive for how we understand it. So Lynn's mother's way of showing affection is through food, which is a lot of, into the Chinese culture, a lot of affection is not physical and oftentimes is not verbal, but it's through taking care of your essentials, like providing you a home, providing you food, providing you with heat or whatever it is for survival. But it's not too frequent that Chinese parents, or I would say like Asian parents as a whole, or maybe more, yeah, maybe as a whole, their love language is not the same as the way that Americans would express it, or East versus West is really what I'm trying to say. And in a way, like Lynn's mother making food for Lynn or ordering food for Lynn is her way of saying, I accept you. I'm still upset at you, but I accept you. I care for you. And then Lynn's way of asking for another food for Walid, for his friend, is his way of saying, I messed up and I want to make sure that I'm looking after my friend as well. So in a way, that's his way of passing on his love language to his friend. So yeah, so I think the mother figure is a very quiet force in the film, and it's really like pulling together emotionally the whole world.
Yeah. Are there any particular themes or messages that you want the audience to pull from this film?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest themes that I was trying to communicate is the theme of belonging. And it's hard to find a place of belonging. And Lynn, through his own dismissiveness of his own culture, Lynn, through his experimentation, is just trying to find belonging and trying to find home. And I think the theme here is that Lynn, through Lynn's attempt to assimilate, he basically discovers that he's always had home on his side, that he's always belonged, but he just has to recognize that he was always there. And so I think that's one of the major themes. I'm trying to think there's a few other themes that I want to touch on.
I think one of the themes is Mama's always right.
Say that one more time.
Mama's always right.
Mama's always right. Yeah, yeah. There's definitely like the parental love and the filial piety and respect between you and the parents and the kid. I think there is another theme of like subtle racism that I like. I think it's hard to communicate this. Like when growing up in the South, there's always like offhanded remarks of discomfort from the American culture towards foreigners. I'm not sure how would I like say this theme in one word. There's like a discomfort of like foreign people in the South where I was growing up. There was always like little remarks like microaggressions that were made towards people of color. And I was really trying to communicate that through Mark, where it's you're not saying anything specifically that's racist per se, but it's almost like that line where Mark is like, oh, that makes sense that your mom works at that restaurant. It's like on the surface there's nothing wrong with saying that, but at the same time it's like the thought that had come along that line that was said out loud, there is much deeper rooted perspective for something like that. So I did want to highlight a little bit of that through the Mark character. But yeah, I think those two are like two of my major themes that I wanted to communicate.
But yeah, that's cool. Piracy and adult content consumption are hot topic issues.
Right.
What drew you to reference them in this kind of story?
Piracy in the early 2000s there was a time stamp on this because everybody was on Napster, people were using Kazaa, people were
Yeah.
downloading torrent. So there was a lot of that going on. And this is before anybody knew how to crack down on it. And then of course adult content. I think it's funny because right now like adult content is so available like to anybody. But at that time it was like it wasn't easy to find adult content, to be honest. There were websites, but if a DVD had come out, you can't just download the whole thing. Like it wasn't just some commodity that everybody had access to. It was a privilege to be able to get the latest and the greatest DVD. Like you kids couldn't walk into an adult store, kids sure couldn't just buy it straight online. There it was almost like a necessity to go through this route. And I think one of the ways that I think about my characters, for a lack of better words, is these are just two like shithead teenagers. They're trying to impress girls, they're trying to impress their friends, they're just going through their everyday normal lives in through high school. It's just that they're in a very different world, so their approach to it is very different and the way they react to their environment is very different. So part of the film is just creating that world and then let the characters live in it.
Yeah, that was exactly my thought as to because it's a mistake, but it's not that big of a mistake to where
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
what when and where can we watch this film?
Right now, it's playing at Tribeca this coming weekend. It's playing this Sunday, June 8th, for the first premiere screening, and then it's playing again on the 13th and 14th of June, which is next weekend.
Are there gonna be any Amazon distribution or anywhere?
Maybe there will be some. I don't know yet, and not at the moment, but I'm hoping that with short films, it's hard to get distribution, but I hope that we will have something. Worst case scenario, not worst case scenario, a very good case scenario would be if Vimeo wanted to give us a staff pick, or we can live on Vimeo, or Omleto is another good place to live. So there's online platforms where we can live after our festival tour.
Well, it has been a good time talking to you, Frank.
Thank you so much. Thanks for your time. I appreciate your questions.
Thank you.
All
Have a
right.
good day.
You too. Bye bye.